Hey guys, People Coolest Gamers, back to review The Flash Season 3, Episode 5, Monster. So if you haven't watched some of the other reactions, I am a couple weeks behind, very behind on TV show reactions, so I knew I said I wouldn't do this again, but this is how it worked out with reviews. I've been kind of so busy, and I still want to get my thoughts out to you guys if anyone cares to see what I thought about this episode, even though it was a couple weeks ago. So with that out of the way, I will be back to reactions, and I will eventually catch up, so please stay patient. I do appreciate that. The episode, I would say, was really good. I really enjoyed this Flash episode. I thought it had a lot of compelling points in it, but it wasn't a super packed episode, but things that are definitely meaningful for the season. Not that I didn't like last episode, because it was great to see, classic Flash villains in the Mirror Master in the top. However, it was nice to enjoy this episode. Yes, you can look back on this and say this episode was a filler episode, and that's going to happen in these, these 23 episode seasons, but I do feel there was enough information here to sustain this episode and make it worthwhile to watch again. So I would say there's 4 main points of the episode. I would say it's Caitlin's mother, a monster, Wells is a fake, and Julian. So starting with the first point here, Caitlin's mother. So we finally meet someone from Caitlin's family. We know she's an only child. We find out in this episode that her father is dead. He died maybe of cancer, some kind of illness. It didn't specify on, what it was, but whatever it was, whether it was cancer or something, I doubt it was related to metahumans. Caitlin's mother did try to save her. I think her name was Dr. Tenor something, Tenor Bomb, Tenor, something like that. You can let me know down below. But she clearly, not only with the last name, but with the photo you've seen on the desk when Caitlin enters her office, she did remarry. It looks like she had another child, just one kid. I didn't see if it was a girl or a guy. But she moved on with her life in the best way that she could. We know in the past we've gotten very little hints. Probably the biggest hint was last year. I think it was like episode 19, I think it was. The one where Caitlin was trapped with the other Caitlin of Earth 2, who was Killer Frost on Earth 2 when Zoom captured her. He said, they were talking about each other's mothers, and they said, they're both cold as ice, right? And our Caitlin grew up as an only child. The other one had a brother, and he died. That's why she was like that. It seems like this Caitlin, her mother is like that because of her father. It's weird that I didn't mention that to the other Killer Frost last season, because I think they said something like, why is your mother such a bitch on the other Earth? And she was just like, I couldn't tell you or whatever. It seems like that was kind of a way just to hold the information for the next season so they can have an episode like this, or just maybe in the sense that they didn't know what they were going to do, but I don't really have a problem with that at all. Her mother is kind of as I pictured her, and as they suggested. She's cold, she's super smart, she's very business and work oriented. Her and Caitlin don't talk a lot, clearly. It definitely seems that Caitlin is just at fault at that, like equally or more so in why they don't talk. So I did like that it wasn't just the cliche like, oh, my mother's super cold to me or this or that, because they used the cliche of a person, a family member dying. But it was Caitlin, she wanted to separate from her because her mother really never came back to her in any kind of way. And maybe she's being that mother to the child now, but Caitlin would know about that. Caitlin wanted to also make a name for herself, so I understand that. But there's definitely palpable tension between them, more of just old family scars. So I did like that. I did like the introduction of her mother. I think we will see her more as the season goes on, kind of dealing with her Killer Frost powers here, which is why Caitlin went there in the first place. I'm assuming, and correct me down below, I'm assuming Caitlin, since she was gone for a few days, she went to another city. Because at first, when I was looking at, right before I was recording this review, I was like, wait, that building that Caitlin entered at the beginning, that was her mom's, place of business, her office. It looked like a similar building that our villain, or the kid, and we'll get to that, gets captured at the end, but then I look back and it's not. So I assume she went to another city. I didn't see any company name or anything else. So if you have any more information on that without spoilers, let me know down below if you caught something else. Her mother works with this guy, Nigel. He was kind of the throwaway character there. that I'll touch on in a second, but Caitlin goes there to, try to determine how to stop her frost powers, maybe completely get rid of them. She wants to talk to someone who not only is a scientist who understands it. Caitlin mentioned some paper, they obviously have cutting edge technology there, and she's trying to keep it away from her friends, or basically family they are at Star Labs. And it was a way, in a way, to reconnect with her mother, or try to. But it was a ballsy move, not being so close to your mother in any sort of way, and then revealing your powers to her by freezing her desk. I did like that whole scene where Caitlin was like, she was sick of the bullshit. The Killer Frost came out a little bit in her and saying like, Mom, I'm the patient. So I really did like that scene. I like that it's Caitlin absorbs energy, so maybe when she freezes stuff, she absorbs kind of the heat energy from it. I'm not really a chemistry major. I think that's something like an entropic or something reaction or something, and anyone who knows that can correct me down below. But maybe that's how she just grows and gets more power. Does this Killer Frost work different than the Killer Frost we know from the Other Earth? As far as I remember, the Killer Frost in the Other Earth kind of had blue eyes when she was Killer Frost, with context that Danielle Panabaker put in. This Killer Frost is very cool. Seems like her eyes actually turn white when the powers come on, and maybe they'll stay white when she's probably fully Killer Frost. We saw the hints to the hair and the blue lips. So it looks like that's all coming. I did like the conversations Caitlin had with her mother in here, not only learning more about her family, but it seems like they're going to maybe get on the path to some kind of reconciliation. I did like that Caitlin had the exchange of like, listen, I know what it's like to lose a spouse. I do know. And they're so disconnected that Caitlin lost Ronnie twice, technically, over and on the Other Earth, even though that's a different Caitlin, over a year ago. And her mother had no idea whatsoever because they're not in each other's lives. She said, oh, she sent a birthday card or whatever. Oh, I didn't forget to send that. And Caitlin said, oh, you sent it in April, which I assume is kind of pointing to the fact that she sent it really early, I guess, or maybe really late, either one. So they're not really in touch with their lives, but I did like their whole storyline going forward. The thing that was just ridiculous, that I didn't think was stupid, it was just ridiculous from the character's perspective, was this guy Nigel, right? He thinks that, he wants to get out from under the thumb of Caitlin's mother, which is the same thing kind of Caitlin wanted to do. And he's like, oh, you're not leaving until I get all these results, right? And did you not see what she did? She can freeze you. Did you just think her own goodness was not going to defend herself? Like, maybe she did more research into this whole other side of her personality. I thought that was I understand that was a plot device for her to see her powers further slipping from her control, and to kind of have a badass moment, and for Caitlin's mother to kind of be like, I'm so sorry. I don't know how much that counts for. And Caitlin saying, oh, that counts for a lot, which was a really sweet scene. But if I'm Caitlin's mother, I fire that guy Nigel or get him off the books or something. No one's going to probably believe him anyway. There's some way to get rid of him, because Caitlin should have told him what an asshole he was, that he was trying to basically take this research in her mother's lab and use it for himself and try to make a bigger name for himself. So I just thought he was a jackass. Like, you're an idiot if you thought that was going to work out. But I like that storyline. The second main point I would say is a monster. So we have this whole monster thing coming. I was so shocked. I was like, what the fuck was that? I was like, Cora, you better get your ass over here. Barry, did you fuck this up? Because now a Flashpoint, there's aliens on this universe. Is that a metahuman that can turn into this giant foot monster? It's like a Cloverfield alien type of shit going on. What the fuck is happening? But it was really awesome to see. At the end of the episode, we discovered that it's actually just a hologram being controlled by a 15-year-old kid. However, I didn't quite understand. I understand how the hologram ran with the Transformers, and it took that much power to render it to look realistic. But how did it was the whole damage to the city just the Transformers blowing up, which is damage in itself? Or, like, was the hologram able to actually affect and hurt people and destroy stuff? It didn't really seem like it, so that wasn't entirely explained there. But I did like that whole aspect. It was kind of disappointing in the end of the reveal. I kind of wish they had aliens or something on this universe because of a fault of Barry or some kind of rip to Kara's Earth, and because I'm still wondering, I guess they're going to use Cisco Vibe, but how she's going to get here in the crossover, but whatever. Don't let me know. I don't want to know down below if you know. But I like that whole scene. The only thing I didn't like that I thought was like a little weird was at the end, this kid's like, oh, I'm sick of being bullied, and like I wanted to have some power, so he terrorizes the city. So like, where's your parents, kid? Did he grow up in a bad background? Like, how did he have the technology to do this? I guess he's super smart. Like, I thought that was a little weird, and just, I don't know, it felt a little awkward to me, like that reveal. And like the conversation that him and Joe had, I guess like it saved it for me. If they just cut away after the commercial, I would have been like, well, that was underwhelming. But I guess the conversation him and Joe had, like, yeah, you're gonna pay for your mistakes, is gonna be consequences, but you can come back from this. You're still young, and I understand the position you're in and stuff like that. But I don't know. I love the monster idea. I just didn't like kind of the reveal behind the curtain. It's kind of like when you know that the Wizard of Oz is really someone just behind a curtain, and is not actually a wizard. It was kind of one of those things. So it was a little bit of a letdown. So that was one nitpick of the episode that I was like, and just like, you guys, if you see my reaction, the whole Magenta storyline worked for me a lot more than most, it seemingly, when I was poking around the internet and watching other people's reactions. I thought her story was cool, and I understood where she was coming from, and her whole abusive, household that she grew in and out of the foster system and stuff like that. This didn't work as much, maybe because we didn't have as much, a connection to the character, or it wasn't the actor that sold me, or the writing wasn't great. I think it was kind of a combination of all things, but I did like it for as long as it was going on. The third main point is Wells is a fake. So god damn it, like, we can never get a Wells that doesn't have a secret or isn't lying. This is like even though it's technically been 4 Wells on the show, we didn't know the dead Wells. This is, the original one from this Earth. We've had 3 Wells now that didn't turn out to be who they were at first. This sticks with the trend. That was kind of annoying and a little bit overdone, of how many times are we going to have Tom Cavanaugh play a different Wells, which you guys, if you heard my thoughts of last episode, I was not really a huge fan of the whole Wells from Earth 19 thing going on, and, getting rid of Earth 2 Wells and bringing in this Wells just so Tom Cavanaugh's on the show. He did warm up to me a little bit with his antics, especially when he was swinging that drumstick all episode, and he has like all these different ticks and tropes, and him referencing different movies and music and stuff like that from the other Earth, I really did like. However, making him another liar, not really that great. I did like that if they were going to take it in that way, I like the way they did it, where when they first introduced the watch and like he was talking about the narrative going according to plan, I was like, oh my god, not again. Even if it's like an Earth 2 Wells where he's actually a good person but he has other motivations, I was like, we're going to do this again. But I like how he said he's writing a novel. I do believe that. He is also seemingly an entrepreneur, who he wants to, he said, to be used as a muse. He's not a scientist, which is the first Wells that we'll see out of the 4 we've seen that is not a scientist whatsoever. So that, I think, is going to be an interesting point of contention going forward, of how he's actually going to fit into the team. How is he actually going to help? Because clearly he didn't know what he was doing in this episode. He did seem like he helped with the whole car alarm thing, even though Cisco said that he didn't. But I think it's going to offer maybe a fresh perspective to the team, because he might have the ability to think outside the box, and if anything, it'll provide like these cool little Easter eggs of what Earth 19 is like. Saying that Gladiator was called Sweaty Men on that Earth is a terrible name, like he said. I thought the Titanic thing was hilarious. It was just saying like Alfred Hitchcock made the Titanic. It's like a murder mystery. It was just like, who did the murder? Who cares? We're drowning. Like, that was hilarious. So I really did enjoy that. And going forward, I always like when we go to other Earths and we point out, like, wait, is this similar? Wait, what's different here? What do you do that? This Earth seems very different in the way they say hello and goodbye. What does he say, like, good communion or something, as a good day or something? Like, so there's all these different things that look, he looks like he's doing like a courtesy or like a dab or a combination of both when he says, hi and bye. So I think that could be funny material going forward. I'm just hoping that he is an entrepreneur. There's no more lies, there's no more secrets, and he can just be a good person for the team, an asset, and hopefully Earth 2 Wells will come back at some point. But he's kind of on a trial basis they gave him of a few weeks to prove himself, and he probably will prove himself. What was interesting, though, is he was talking, because we don't know what's a lie and what's true. He was talking that there was a flash on his Earth and that they had like a battle in this thing called World War, of like all the other evil metahumans or so. So if anyone knows what kind of Easter egg that is to DC, if it is one, let me know down below. But I thought that was very interesting. But is he telling the truth? Was there actually an other Flash on his Earth? I think so. He said he's in a partnership with the other person that really runs Star Labs. He is associated with Star Labs on his Earth, but it's more of a he's the face of the company. It seems like I'll have to go back and look again, but it seems like he did something wrong or not great that kind of pushed him out of public favor, and his partner kind of helped him out. He solved the equation and helped him go to another Earth to maybe start a new life and be useful there. So maybe we'll see his partner at some point or more of his Earth. I doubt it, but it is always a possibility in a crazy show like The Flash and these just CW shows, but especially The Flash. So I am interested to see that going forward. He seemed like he said he was an advisee to this whole metahumans problem on his Earth. So I'm just really interested to see what he's going to contribute to the team. But I do like his quirks. Maybe he'll grow on me. He started to grow on me a little bit more in this episode. But I do want Earth 2 Wells back. And then the fourth main point I would say is Julian. So Julian, since he's been introduced in episode 2, I believe it was, of this season, has been a pain in the ass. I'm not a Harry Potter fan. Not that I hate it. I just never watched the movies. I don't know anything about him. I think he plays like Draco Malfoy or something in there. But Tom Felton is great in the role that he plays. He's definitely hateable, but at the end of this episode, just like I think the episode was constructed to be this way, is I felt for him, and I actually think there's a point where eventually, whether it goes good or bad, Barry will tell him or Julian will find out that Barry's a Flash, because everyone finds out everyone's secret identities in these CW shows. But at this point, if they grow more in a relationship, as friends, as co-workers, I would want Barry to tell him, because he told Eddie, which was kind of a weird reason, to take Iris off the trail of her dead boss. Like, that was weird. If you did that, you could do the whole Julian thing. I did like that he said, oh, you think it's going to be a backstory of like, oh, my dead parents. But you find out he comes from old money in England. And he was the odd one out. He didn't fit into that normal, and I'm doing air quotes, you can't see obviously because you're listening to this, but he didn't fit into that normal structure of the old English family that should inherit the money, because he was the firstborn son. He was the weirdo, as he said, and he wanted to go play with bugs and be a scientist, and they basically ousted him, and he went to America, became the scientist. He rises to the top of his field, and boom, metahumans hit, and now he doesn't know anything about him, and he feels powerless. And I can understand it's not only his connection to the kid, the monster in this episode, of how he was feeling powerless, but Julian feels powerless, and I understand that maybe that's why he doesn't like metahumans, why he didn't like Barry, why he didn't like the Flash. He doesn't like Barry because Barry, he gets his work done, but he gets his work done because of his Flash powers. I understand being the Flash is probably more important, even though he does good work as a CSI. But he is always late. He's always making ridiculous excuses and not abiding by the rules. He stole a sample from Julian. So I can understand Julian being mad, but I hope that going forward that maybe they can have a little bit of tension or play off each other, but they can work more, not cohesively, but just smoother together. I would say I would like to see that. I did like his explanation of, just trying to be this man that in a way comes out from the shadow of his family, and he's trying to do what he loves. And Barry connected with him saying, my mother died. I like how he didn't say she was murdered, and the same thing with her his father, because then that could kind of invite questions, even though most people should probably figure out who he is if they don't know by now. But I liked his whole storyline. He seems to have some kind of backstory or something, some experience. I think he mentioned of military experience, like 4 years of military experience. I assume that gun was also police department issued. So that brings an interesting perspective that Barry doesn't really have any fighting skills. Barry doesn't know how to handle a gun for the most part. And now we see Julian, kind of an added part to his character. Barry saved him, and all those things led up to maybe Julian starting to trust the Flash more, and trust Barry more, and especially the moment where Barry saved Julian from killing that kid that was controlling the monster, that was the moment that not only he was like, maybe the Flash isn't all bad, but that's what really broke him of like, holy crap, I almost killed a 15-year-old kid tonight. Not only was that careless in the field, but maybe his hate or his passion or whatever was driving him, and he realized that, he needs to reassess things. And I thought that was not fake. I didn't think that was, poorly written. I thought that was an excellent way for Julian to ascend to that point of kind of epiphany of maybe he needs to accept Barry more and the Flash and evolving that relationship. So really enjoyed that. Other little main points, I guess there was not a lot of Joe or Iris in this episode, especially Joe, but they touched on a little bit of the whole Cecile thing. It just seems like he's hesitant, because probably, Iris's mother was his one true love, and he's see how that worked out for him in his life. And he has a lot of stuff going on with Barry being the Flash, and he has Wally, and he has Iris, and he has his police duties. But I think that will eventually come to fruition. I like the little conversation that Cisco had with Caitlin, that, glad you're back and everything, but saying like, hey, take advantage of family because you never know, when that's not going to be able to happen, because in this Earth, because of fucking Barry, his brother's dead now. So I did like that little scene there. Was really enjoyable. I want to see where they're taking this Killer Frost storyline, when she's going to tell the team. We got a little bit of Barry and Iris's relationship, and Iris is saying as she's falling in love and she wants the same thing for Joe. She's very, she said, "Oh, I'm very involved in my father's life and won't let it go." She's very involved in everyone that she cares about life. She's very stubborn but caring like that. So that was cool to see. And, we saw Captain Singh a little bit in this episode, who kind of seems a little lenient to Barry. And lets him get away with stuff. Maybe that's because he knows him for longer than he's known Julian, or maybe he has an inkling that Barry's a Flash. I am surprised that he hasn't found that at this point. But, those were the only other major things. I mean, the other little thing, Barry's living with Cisco right now, and Cisco kind of wants his space a little bit that he appreciates what Barry's doing, but Barry's kind of going a little bit overboard. Eventually, I think we're going to see him find his own place here, just in the show, and it was cool also just to see Cisco's place as well. But overall, guys, that's kind of my thoughts here on Season 3, Episode 5 of The Flash Monster. Let me know what you thought of the episode in the comments below. Did you like it? Did you not like it? I overall like this episode. What kind of Easter eggs did I miss in this episode? What do you think about Caitlin's mother? Wells' kind of lies and then his fake reveal. Do you think, his fake out and then his reveal as an entrepreneur? Do you think there's more to that story? Is he still lying more? How do you think he's going to help the team? How do you think Caitlin's going to control her Killer Frost powers, which it was discovered in this episode that the more she uses them, the more she turns over as Killer Frost, and it's only a matter of time where she's constantly fighting this battle of Caitlin versus the Killer Frost, who's in control, and I think that's going to be very interesting to see going forward. If she turns into a villain, if she becomes an ally, I think if they handle it well, either way, that can go really good. What do you think of kind of Julian's a little bit of backstory and his progression in this episode? Do you feel more for him? Do you think he's going to become part of the team officially and know Barry's a Flash? Do you think that's only a matter of time? What did you think of the whole monster thing? Did you think it was cool at first and then maybe we're kind of let down? Did you sympathize with the kid's story? And kind of any other thoughts, predictions you have in the episodes going forward? Let me know them down below. As always, since I'm behind, please do not let me know any spoilers of episodes that have come out since then, and episodes of any information in general. I don't want to know any spoilers at all, but any theories or predictions you have, if you don't know anything, please let me know them down below. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, share with your friends if you'd be so kind. And until next episode of The Flash, guys, thanks for listening.